Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Vicki Howie of chakraboosters.com, the creator of Chakra Boosters Healing Tattoos. So today what I'd like to take a look at is the divine feminine and the toxic feminine. Now, I'm not just relating to women, right? The feminine is the energy that is in both of us, but it will typically show up more and mean more for women because we are socialized toward the feminine, and our hormones, our very makeup, our bodies invite us into the feminine. In fact, the gland that relates to the sacral chakra, the second chakra, is a gland that is in two, the ovaries. And the gland that relates to the root chakra is in the testes. It is the testes. Okay, so we have ovaries and testes. So there's literally these glands that are our primary sexual glands, and they operate differently in everyone. There are people that supposedly are born of one sex and feel even biologically more drawn to another sex or more in another sex, so or another gender. So I can't get too complicated here, you guys. I'm really open-minded to all of it, and I would love to hear your comments on any of it. But let me just talk in this about the divine feminine and the toxic feminine by going through the three feminine chakras. Now, the first one is the sacral. So let's look at the sacral. The sacral is where the feminine lives. One of the easy ways to get into the feminine is just to go down into your womb space. The watery, the flowing space, because water is the element of the sacral, of the hips. The hips. That's why just a sensual belly dance is so feminine, right? Or a hula dance. Or really just about any dance, whether a man's doing it or a woman, if the hips are involved in that, you can see that sensual sacral chakra energy. I'm going to give you 3 qualities in each. So together we're going to have 9 qualities for the divine feminine and 9 qualities for the toxic. This is not exhaustive, but I chose to just do 3 to keep it easy enough for us to look at what does it look like when we're owning the healthy version, the highest, the most divine version of the feminine, and what does it look like when we're there in that energy, but it's getting thwarted and it looks toxic. So starting with the sacral, the first quality in the sacral that is very divine is emotional connection. When a woman is in, or a man is in the divine feminine, they are emotionally connected with self. Can you feel that? Just emotionally connected. This means that there's a self, a witness, or some part of self that is above the emotions, so that the emotions aren't running things, but there's just a delicious in touchness with them, feeling it in the body, being able to make sense of which emotions are coming up. I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, I'm despondent, I'm frustrated. Like knowing the different textures of emotions, that is divine feminine. Knowing it and not being controlled by it, being in touch with it. Being in touch, I love that term, in touch. Being able to touch the emotions, validate one's own emotions, and here's what's really important. Being in touch means accepting, not resisting the emotions, not repressing the emotions, not ignoring the emotions. A man or woman in the divine feminine is in touch with his or her emotions. Now, the contrast to that is if there's toxicity, if it's the toxic feminine, the emotions have control of the being. So a man or a woman in toxic feminine in regard to emotions would have just emotions out of control. The emotions are taking the lead. Or I'm going to give you the other extreme. We're going to see a lot of extremes here. Which is one way or the other. They're either led by them and they're extreme, or they're totally out of touch with them. They've cut them off and they're dry in the emotional well. I said well, see, because this is the water chakra. So if If you're really in touch with your emotions, you're validating your emotions, you're loving, accepting, and being with your own emotions, that's the divine feminine. If you're completely out of touch with your emotions, or you're overly run by your emotions, you don't get a chance to even feel into them because they're running you, that would be toxic feminine. Our second quality in the divine feminine in the sacral area is vulnerable. A man or woman in touch with the divine feminine within is comfortable with authentic vulnerability. Authentic vulnerability is sharing in, again, a safe space, because there is a wisdom to all of this. You don't just share with everybody. Sharing in a safe space, in the right place, in, for instance, an intimate relationship that you trust, sharing things you might not share with others, sharing your fears or doubts or innermost world, the things that can make us feel vulnerable. That's what vulnerability is. Sharing the things that could make us feel overexposed if we were in a judgment place. The divine feminine that is really healthy can be vulnerable and realizes that vulnerability connects us as human beings, because we've all been there. We have all been through anything you can share with me vulnerably. I have some place in my life where I can get in touch with that in some way, where I have a similar feeling or a similar situation. On the other side of vulnerability, we have, again, a dichotomy. You can go two ways in expressing the unhealthy, the toxic feminine in regard to vulnerability. One can be that you become hardened, and this is kind of like the emotions again, because the feminine flows, and the hardening, that hardening could be almost any quality in the sacral chakra. But to harden and have a mask, and I'm not going to show any of my softness or my things that make me feel exposed, that are open to be judged. I'm not going to share any of those things. That would be the hardening. Or you can get sort of a victim mode where that vulnerability is used in a way where, oh, I'm just soft, I'm just weak, everybody takes advantage of me. It becomes almost like a, what's the word? A cross to bear in a way. It's a softness that you yourself are judging as a weakness. Because in the divine feminine type of vulnerability, it's not seen or felt in the body as a weakness. It's felt as a type of feminine courage. Now, I almost hesitated to use the word courage because we have such visions of what we think courage looks like. But vulnerability of the divine feminine has this really brave aspect to it. Can you feel that? And it doesn't rely, it's aware of boundaries and the safety, the place in which you choose to be vulnerable, because you should be discriminating, but it doesn't take the other person's reaction as the truth, so it can't be victimized. So that's why victimhood or hardening can be the opposite of vulnerability. Can you feel that? And I want to use feel a lot here because the sacral is the feeling chakra. The third one, and again, there could go on, I could have 10 qualities, but I'm just choosing 3 to get us going on this series right now. And we're going to look for the third one in the sacral at sensual and sexual. For women, it is so tied in, the sexual and the sensual. I'm going to just use both terms together, the sensual, sexual. Okay? A woman who's in touch and really expressing her divine feminine versus the toxic is in touch with, I have a mic, so I'm going to be careful, in touch with her own body, in touch with her own sensuality, herself, like how it feels to touch self. And she knows her own skin, her own sexual desires. Desire is the force for the divine feminine. The divine masculine might like to have a goal outside or something, but the divine feminine really likes to just feel desire, passion, interest, and follow that. So I'm meaning this in not just the term of just sexual, right? But what I'm talking about is sensuality, sexuality that is with self first. Because remember, the divine feminine is all about this inner world and relationship with self that then affects all the relationships in the exterior world. So it's sexuality and sensuality that is celebratory, not shamed or guilted, non-judgmental, and just into pleasure, enjoyment, and first of all, relationship with self. Toxic sensuality and sexuality is either lacking boundaries for self or others, or sexless. So let me go into both. The lacking boundaries looks like it goes into I'm going to really jump into sexuality, but I haven't got intimate with myself yet. So I'm going to be almost predatory on others, or I'm going to just be really like lacking boundaries physically with others. And then there's the opposite side. Oh, and also lacking boundaries with self, which means I'm going to allow any lover's probably not the right word, any person into my sexual arena, even if the intimacy that I need or crave or want isn't there. So I'm lacking boundaries. I'm lacking the ability to say no, and I'm lacking the ability to stop myself from not imposing on others' boundaries physically. Can you feel into that? Those two go together in the high sexual activity, usually with an overactive sacral chakra. Can you feel that? And in the toxic realm. Then you have the more underactive energy of the sacral chakra, which is you've gone sexless. No, not interested. Lost that a long time ago or whatever. And it's normal and natural and delicious for the feminine energy in us to want to be intimate with self and with others, and to be sensual and pleasured and to feel that realm. So when we see sexlessness at any age, our culture tells us stories about age, but I've seen some couples in the later years just showing the young ones how to do it, okay, in terms of their fiery passion for each other. So let's not buy into those cultural myths. Let's go to the heart. The heart is the middle chakra of our field. It just radiates out from us, and it is the center feminine chakra. The heart, the first quality of the heart for divine feminine energy is compassion. The divine feminine in a man or a woman has great compassion for others. We can feel it's like a love, like what happens to them happens to us. We care. There's just this connection of heart energy. In the toxic realm, we have the overactive heart chakra energy becoming codependent. Not just that I care and I feel for you, but I'm still boundaried and I'm my own person, but rather I'm codependent with you. Your problems are my problems, and I literally am going to try to live my life through you rather than through me. You feel that? And on the other end of it is isolationist, like no compassion. I can't feel it. So that would be the underactive heart chakra, would be no compassion, blocked off, saying, I don't know why I can't feel others, I can't be compassionate with others. So that too would be the toxic feminine. The second quality is love, of course, loving. And to me, I always want to put loving with accepting, because we use the word love and we bandy it, do you say bandy? Yeah, we bandy it about. And we overuse it, and it often means a possessive form of dramatic, romantic love instead of just love. I'm talking about heart chakra love, which is unconditional connection to others, which is about acceptance. So I'm using love/acceptance. The healthy, or I like to say the divine feminine, reveals the heart chakra as just this open acceptance of self. This is key again. Everything I'm mentioning is first self-compassion, then compassion to other, first self-love, because we really can't. We think we can be it for another without being for ourselves, but our outer world really is an inner reflection, and it's super hard to have any cleanness or sustainability in how we treat others outside of us if we aren't nurturing and holding that same kind of energy inside of ourselves. So love acceptance is easy for the divine feminine to go, oh, rather than go into judgment, the divine feminine goes into, I get that, I can understand that, I've been there, or if I were in a different situation, I could be there. Can you feel that? It's just very connecting. It's finding the similarities rather than judgment and solar plexus analytical mind that's finding the differences. In the heart, we find the commonalities. We find the connections. In the toxic side of the heart, we have the part that is overactive and tends to be the martyr, because it's about, oh, I love you so much, but it's without doing self first, so it's this overly, and it gets sticky. It's like, I'm doing this because I love you. There's like this deep martyr energy. And if, you know, this, in a day and age, especially when, I'm not going to say how long ago, but when women had a harder time holding jobs and were more domesticated, they literally sometimes couldn't do the career they wanted to do or something, and some of that energy would have to be channeled into mothering, and it became sticky. So if you were mothered by a mother who was very giving and loving, expressed a lot of love, but there was something under it that was always sticky, then that was an overactive heart chakra that led to sort of a martyr kind of energy of, I'm doing this for you, which underneath martyr energy, because the martyr doesn't have the healthy self energy that's needed, underneath it then is this owing, this passive owing, yikes. And then of course, that would be the overactive. The underactive of the loving aspect, of loving, accepting aspect of the heart chakra for the toxic feminine would be just unloving and unaccepting, super duper judgmental. Just, I don't accept that. I'm judging that. I'm judging that. I'm judging that, right? It's just I judge everything. The third quality for the heart chakra that I've chosen, and remember there are more, but I want to show this one to you in the divine feminine, is healing energy, heart open healing. When you're in this man or woman's field who has a very open, divine feminine heart, you feel refreshed, you feel healed, because again, the heart energy goes out the shoulders and arms and out the hands. That's why we heal with our hands, whether it's massage or Reiki or whatever. These are wonderful instruments of love and healing. And the divine feminine is aware of this, and it flows out of him or her, the person that has a very divine feminine heart. The toxicity looks like when the person is overactive in this healing kind of energy. Again, you can get too much, sort of a, I shouldn't say again, but you're getting the sense of what I'm talking about when there's too much of something. It takes Ultimately, underneath, it takes, because if one isn't, again, healing self, loving self, really making sure the circuits are working here, then it's going to come out as a real longing for touch and for like a neediness for it. That would be the overactive aspect of this healing energy. The underactive would be this rigidness of like not opening the heart and just staying away, usually regard to touch, like someone who's super not touchy. And the feeling I want to make for either one of these, if you really get into it, even the person that's giving the touch or the person no touch, the person that gives no touch in the world might do it just out of shyness or whatever. So I want to be very clear that there can be people who have very open heart but just aren't as comfortable with the touch aspect of it. So I should really say this is the determining factor. When you're around somebody who has a toxic version of the divine feminine healing energy, you're going to feel sort of a vampire energy. You're going to feel a taking. You're going to feel more tired or exhausted or, I need a break after that energy. Okay, so third eye is the final feminine and the highest feminine chakra. And what it looks like here for the divine feminine is beautiful intuition and connection to that intuition. So that's what's really key. Again, it's always about self first. I'm connected to everything my body intuits. Intuition is a bodily thing. I'm also connected to my higher self, to any wisdom that my higher self would want to share with me. That's the divine feminine. Can you feel that? Like, whoa, I'm just in touch with the ethers and with every cell in my body, with the God consciousness that comes from all around me and the God consciousness that comes out of every cell of me. And I get intuitive messages and nudges for myself all the time. The toxic feminine around this intuitive quality is they will just not even go to the source, not even ask self, intuitive self, body, for any kind of information, like literally shut it down. And the toxic version of this usually criticizes, in this realm of awakening, criticizes intuitive gifts, others using intuition, intuitive healing type methods. The toxic, weak intuitive will really do that, like be very critical, closed and critical around it. I just wanted you to recognize that one. And then once we get up here in the upper chakras, when there's too much of it, it's not usually too much of a problem, but too much intuition could be that you've thrown out logic. The person that I said before who has the weaker third eye chakra and is toxic feminine, that person, male or female, will go to lots and lots of logic. So much logic and science, and it has to be shown, and like all of this, and say all the rest of that's hooly-balooey, and won't even listen to their own intuition. Okay, but the person that has too much of this intuitive energy can get illogical, will just listen to every little whim. There's just too much, and so there's no deciphering anymore, and it can get it can turn to mental illness in its extreme. It can look very unstable. It will make others feel anxious and unstable. It'd be thoughts and inspirations that have no grounding at all, right? And we don't need them to in life when we are grounded. But if someone is really high in their third eye and just really overblown and toxic, right? Which they'll tend to be ungrounded, and it'll come off as just like sort of a crazy energy of like, where did that all come from? The Third eye, the second third eye quality is loving beauty. The third eye loves beauty all around, sees it everywhere, and of course sees it in self. Instead of falling into a culture where we think a woman needs to look a particular way or a man needs to look a particular way, but we definitely do it more on women. The third eye person, male or female, will look at depth for beauty, and will also look at physical beauty as the entire spectrum. Like in American Beauty, the movie, there's a bag that blows in the wind and the guy just thinks it's beautiful, right? This paper bag, a crumpled paper bag blowing in the wind, but it could look like a leaf, it could be beautiful. So there's the divine feminine in regard to the third eye sees beauty everywhere. It's a person that when you're around them, you're like, wow, I'm just inspired by how they look at the world. And the toxic of that is usually the lacking. And again, the lacking in having doesn't quite work out the same in the upper chakras, because the upper chakras are big and expansive. They just are, and they're positive by nature. They're spiritually oriented by nature. So I'm just going to talk about the main thing here that happens, and that is criticism. The toxic feminine here will be critical of things, especially physically. You know, no appreciation for beauty around. It will just be critical of this, critical of that, critical, instead of appreciating the beauty. And the final quality for the third eye is wisdom and equanimity. Think of, like in Libra, the scales. There's that feeling with the third eye. The third eye is where our energies meet. The Ida and the Pingala energies that run up the spine meet in the third eye, and it brings an equanimity, a balance, a wisdom. So when that's happening for a man or a woman, there's this equanimity. You would go to this person to get advice. The highest feminine in regard to the third eye in this quality of wisdom and equanimity is demonstrated by the kind of person who gives really good advice, like just the best case scenario of a judge in a court who's super fair and sees the whole picture and takes everybody's side into account with no biases. No biases. Got that? So the opposite of that, of course, is this very biased opinion that you see. You don't feel the toxic feminine would be prejudice, actually. The toxic feminine would be prejudiced about this, that, the other thing, whatever. And those prejudices would likely be sourced inside of self as well, too. Whatever this toxic feminine being was judging would be probably aspects of self being judged. So you've probably noticed a theme as I've gone through this. And that theme is over and over and over again, we need to check with the feminine. We check and do our work with self, which is interesting because with the masculine chakras, there needs to be also more engagement in the external world. We need to literally engage with the external world to then feel different things about self. You know, like when you work really hard for a test, you get a good test and you get that good grade and you bring it back to self. Well, that's sort of a masculine engagement. We go out, we learn, we grow, and then we bring that back into self. Whereas with the feminine, we really do the work in here, and then self, just the relationships outside of us unfold as mirrors to this inner work. Guys, this has been a lot, so I hope it's been pretty clear. I'm going to quickly go over the traits just one more time really quickly, since I spent a lot of time describing them. And so if you just want them, I'll also probably put this timestamp down below. We have 9 qualities that I went over for the divine feminine. And in these 9 qualities, there's a version when you're in your divine feminine, whether you're a man or a woman, and there's a version of them when you're in the toxic. And in the lower chakras, and we'll even say up to the heart, but especially in the 3 lower chakras, when I go to do the masculine, in the feminine we only have 1 lower chakra, the sacral chakra. In the sacral chakra, there's definitely a overactive and underactive aspect. In the heart, you can pretty much see it too, and then by the 6th, we don't see that as much, by the third eye. Okay, so the 3, I'm going to name, in fact, I'm going to name all 9 of the divine feminine qualities so you can feel what that feels like. So Take a seat if you're not seated. Take a deep breath and own these divine feminine qualities moving up your body, starting with the sacral. First of all, emotionally in touch, feeling and allowing and being aware of emotions. Vulnerable with self. All of these start with self. Sensual and sexual in an open and non-shamed, loving and playful way. Compassionate, really an open heart. I'm now in the heart chakra, feeling other people's hearts, their lives. Loving and accepting. Unconditional love is acceptance. And healing and radiating an open heart energy that heals those around you, has a positive, uplifting, and healing effect, regardless, having nothing to do with you say or even what you do, just the energy. And then finally, the third eye, 3 qualities. Intuitive, really intuitive, in touch with what body and higher self is telling you. Loving beauty and seeing it everywhere. And then having this sense of wisdom and equanimity that makes you unbiased, where you can really look at the big picture. I think of it as like looking from the mountaintop up here in the third eye. This is where I go when I'm not sure what to do. I just go up into my own third eye and check up there. So those are the 9 qualities. The toxic, of course, is the opposite of that. I already went through all of it. I want to leave it on the energy so that you can feel what it feels like to be in the divine feminine, the true divine feminine, because that's what we're all opening up to. We're moving toward bringing more healthy, feminine, and masculine energy onto this planet. If you like this series, let me know. Give it a like, share it. I hope you've subscribed to my channel. And on the next video, I will share the masculine qualities and what it looks like in the masculine chakras, and what it looks like to be in the truly be in the divine masculine versus being in the toxic masculine, whether you're a man or a woman. Thanks for being here, you guys. I really appreciate you being a part of my channel, and I'm sending you so much love. Blessings.